Do you believe the market will crash? And if yes, do you think there will be a fast recovery or will be a slow recovery?
I think we're probably, because of the new entrants into the market, the downside will be less big in the major cryptos. It'll still be huge in the more risky stuff. And I don't know the format of where we go, whether we keep going that log trend and we keep hitting the bottom of it in a sharp sell-off like we did this year, down 50%, then back up again, or whether we do a down 50, down 40 and trend sideways for a year. I think we'll see both of those types of price actions. So, but I don't think we get the down 80, 90. I don't think that's applicable in the market as deep as this now.
So what the hell is happening with the market right on this last month?
Yeah, I mean, it took me by surprise. My base case was that we were going to see the typical year-end rally. Obviously, most of us had the same idea. Usually when most of us have the same idea, it doesn't work. You know, having come from that finance background, knowing how hedge funds and institutions work, I also knew that if you're a hedge fund and you've got crypto in your portfolio, you've probably had a good year. To get paid, you tend to close out your portfolio. You know what you're going to get paid at the end of the year. They are incentivized to sell their positions, to go away for Christmas, have a break. The institutions like pension funds and others, they tend to rebalance their portfolio. So like Ethereum's up 500% this year. If they started with a 1% weighting, they're now at a 5% weighting. So they probably bring it back down to, let's say, a 2% weighting in line with their allocation. So you've got institutional sellers that never really were in the market before. And they're not expressing, I don't think, a negative view of the market. What they're just doing is rebalancing for year end. And so my general view is that most of that selling is now done. And so the next thing they all come into January with is a new P&L. Oh, right. Yeah. I'm just going to look at my Bloomberg screen to see what the volatility of Amazon is. And that'll give us an idea of what a large adopted network, which is an exponential or logarithmic trend. Bitcoin is roughly about 70-75% volatility. So it's a very volatile asset. I'm not sure I can't find it yet. But what we'll find is that over time, volatility falls as more people are in the network, because you don't have discrepancies between buyers and sellers that create illiquidity because there's more people in the network. So you'll tend to find, I mean, Amazon now is trading off call it a 30% volatility. So it's half that of Bitcoin. As Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies get to 1 billion users plus, what we'll find is that the volatility will fall. The prices become less exponential in nature, both to the upside and the downside. But it should remain in a logarithmic trend.
In how many years do you think this market will be less volatile, the crypto market?
Like 1 billion people, when we reach 1 billion people, it's due to the growth.
Well, 1 billion people, bizarrely, because of the compounding numbers, if it's growing 113% a year, you get there by 2024. Just use the adoption curve. Assume it slows a bit, because adoption always slows because the rate of change goes down when more people are in it, right? So it's easier to go from 1 person to 2 people. That's 100% growth. Than from 2 to 4. Just extrapolating the numbers, you get to 1 billion people by 2024. And that's by slowing the rate of growth down to 80%. You're at 3 billion, 3.5 billion by 2030. Look at the holders of crypto. They're not the traditional holders of equities. Here's a bunch of old people wagging their fingers saying, well, it's much more volatile. The younger people who own crypto like the volatility, because the volatility gives returns, risk reward. The equity market gives less of that. It's a whole change in risk appetite for the population. What do I do now? The idea is, without going into the 2 hours of history and everything within this, is our monetary system and system of value is broken. Ownership and the monopolies that control a lot of this are something that most people have become uncomfortable with. And here we have a new world, this digital world, that is distributed, has less intermediaries. And it's a world where we can create endless GDP because you're not constrained by natural resources. In Brazil, what is the largest driver of natural resources? Agriculture and energy. That is a constraint on the GDP of the country. The amount of money sloshing around, amount of opportunity as you guys as entrepreneurs is actually a direct correlation to how fast GDP can grow. And you've got other monetary issues, Brazil has always had a relative level of instability with its currency and other issues.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
Here we go in a new digital world where you can create digital sovereign states of which you can operate in as a Brazilian that has nothing to do with the Brazilian economy. And it's limitless. There's no boundary. That's why it becomes the new universe. Here we are walking away from an old broken system, which is Brazil 1.0. And here you are walking into world 2.0. You're not constrained as a Brazilian. I'm not constrained because I'm in the Cayman Islands. So we can build businesses like you guys are, which exist everywhere. We're showing that here today. Well, I'm in the Cayman Islands, you're in Brazil. We're doing this in English. It'll be translated in Portuguese. And what we're doing is creating a globalized piece of content. It's really interesting. Those things were not easy to do before. Now it's almost frictionless. The fact that we're in different countries is frictionless. We have no issues whatsoever. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Then it's everywhere. And then you see how many people are working on it, how many smart people are working on small parts. Those guys there are doing DeFi. Those guys there are doing Bitcoin. Those guys there are doing NFTs. Those people there are doing social tokens. Those guys are trying to solve wallets. It's incredible. The power of this distributed network of intelligent people all building towards the same goal of this new financial system and the new internet of value. It's amazing. My background is kind of 30 years traditional finance. I was working for Goldman Sachs, where I started and ran the hedge fund sales business in equities and equity derivatives. I then ran a global macro hedge fund for one of the biggest hedge fund firms in the world called GLG Partners. And then eventually started kind of semi-retired, moved to the Mediterranean coast of Spain and started writing Global Macro Investor, which is a institutional research service read by the world's biggest hedge funds, family offices, sovereign wealth funds, that kind of stuff. Then eventually started a media business called Real Vision back in 2014 to basically democratize the very best financial intelligence. I came into my crypto journey. It started really in 2008. I knew that we had a brewing debt crisis because of the amount of debt the world had and how we'd mismanaged interest rates and created this issue, which was also supported by demographics. Everything blew up in 2008. And then I was in Europe for 2012 when almost Europe collapsed as well. And at that point, I thought, okay, this is not ending because the answer to everything was yet more interest rate cuts and monetary printing was now the norm. And so I started to look around to try and start the world's safest bank because I thought we need to not let people lose all their money. People had lost their money in Spanish banking system, the Cypriot banking system, and then other banking systems around the world. And during that search of setting up a bank with a bunch of family offices, somebody suggested I start looking at Bitcoin. That was 2012. So I looked at Bitcoin, pretty much understood immediately the power of blockchain and Bitcoin itself. I wanted something like that because people didn't know who owned what. And I saw blockchain and I realized on blockchain, you can see who owns what. And it's always recorded and it doesn't get lost. So that's what got me interested. I started investing in Bitcoin in 2013. And I wrote probably the first ever macro framework for Bitcoin and pricing Bitcoin. I looked at the supply of gold, above ground, below ground, all known amounts, and backed it into Bitcoin. And I said, well, with gold at $1,300, if Bitcoin was to follow the same kind of stock to flow ratio, it would be worth $1 million. So therefore, it was at $200 at the time. I said, this is the best risk reward I've ever seen in my life. So that was my journey into crypto. And then over the years, I sold out in the rally in 2017 and then bought back in March 2020.
Great.
And then put everything I had.
Do you want to know one thing about crypto? I made over 3,000% in profit in a few weeks. Fact is, the traditional financial system, the traditional money system makes you poor, not rich. If you want to earn $500,000, $1 million, you have to wait until you're 50, 60, 70 in the traditional financial system, and you probably will still be broke. And you will be old. This is not a sexy combination, as you can imagine. But the question is, how can you start in crypto and make these profits? Where to invest? Where to start? My name is Gunnar and I'm from Germany, as you can hear, and things are a little bit different in Germany. More about that later on. Fact is, there are lots of different cryptocurrencies. It's a gigantic universe where beginners and professionals get easily lost. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. There are 7 key steps you need to follow to become successful in this market. You have to know them, and if you fail one of them, it's literally impossible to succeed in this market. Just an example, one of the key points is your exchange, and one of the biggest are, for example, Binance and Coinbase. These are trusted and well-established exchanges, but, and this is a big but, you won't find the super profitable coins on those exchanges. The unknown super profitable coins that get gigantic profits are not traded on those kind of exchanges. They are traded on much smaller insider platforms that are barely known. And I can tell you what those super secret exchanges are and why they are so profitable. And another super important thing are the right information sources. The point is, the internet is gigantic. There are hundreds and hundreds of YouTube channels, blogs, pages, and much more. And there are also market makers and influencers. For example, Elon Musk, he is not a crypto guy, but the moment he recommended Dogecoin, it went through the roof, to the moon, so to say. But why did he recommend it? Where did he hear it from? He didn't hear it from newspapers. And believe me, he is listening to someone. But you have to know who, and you have to react before he is reacting. This is really, really important. And these are only 2 of the 7 steps you have to follow in order to be successful in crypto. And if you want to know all of these steps in much more detail, and if you want to have a comprehensive checklist, here's what you should do. There is a link below this video. Click on this link and you will get the opportunity to subscribe to my channel. Click on the link and you will see a video where I explain the next steps. So see you soon. Click on the link now. I'll see you there.